Hello and good morning and welcome to the last day of our series on Heritage NAIJA. This is to formally welcome everybody. Thanks for staying with us for these last 3 days. First day, we had a session on complex past, diverse futures, Nigeria's heritage. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And yesterday we talked about, we had a session where we talked about Nigerian cities, heritage and Nigerian cities, the effect of heritage laws in the built environment. And today we are looking at the whole environment in its entirety. We're looking at complex past, diverse future, and the role of climate change. But before we go into the main crux of today's discussion, we'll have the video outlay for today, and that would set us in the mood or set the tone for the Pandora box that will be open as it contains the content of the program. Happy listening.
City is calling, oh arise, sons and daughters of the land.
The Benin City Wall and Moat are a vast continuous network of earth structures around the old Benin Kingdom. These linear earth boundaries are estimated to be about 800 to 24,000 kilometers, allegedly longer than the Great Walls of China, with a length of 8,850 kilometers, and chronicled in the Guinness Book of Record of 1978. The city wall and moat were dug during the reigns of Oba Ogwola 1280 to 1290 AD and Oba Eware I 1440 to 1473 AD. The Benin City Wall and moat were initially constructed as a defense mechanism and agricultural boundaries by Oba Ogwola, while Oba Eware I also constructed another ring of moats and walls to stem the rate of migration from the city. Subsequently, when towns and villages were conquered by the Benin Empire, Enogis, that is dukes, were sent to govern such communities and to protect their territories, built walls and moats, and sometimes linked in construction directly or indirectly to the initial city walls and moat. This formed the great chain of the Benin City Wall and moat. In spite of the massive encroachment on the city walls and moat, several areas still exist where the heritage sites present its original form, which can be enmarked as designated sites for cultural presentation and tourism. Today, the prospects of the city walls and moat cut across historic and socio-cultural significance, geopolitical, environmental significance, tourism and economic significance, and educational and research significance. This is the city wall and moat behind the state CID at Saplo Road, Benin City, showing a good representation of the original state of the city wall and moat, but with patches of encroachment on the buffer zone. It also has a beautiful flora and fauna still intact. Though it has been encroached upon by climatic factors, it is not so serious as the rich vegetation has protected this effect. This is another section of the moat at 3rd Junction by Sapumba Road. This section has been badly encroached upon and is in a bad state of conservation. It also reflects a devastated state as a result of climatic factors such as rain. The human encroachment here is so severe as the moat has been transformed into a refuse dump site, a marketplace, and the red sand dug as filling sand. This is Upper Owa section of the moat. Though the Upper Owa section reflects the original depth of the moat, human factors of encroachment has been seen with the various heaps of refuse dumps and pipes from fish ponds seen protruding into the moat from neighboring houses. The new Benin section of the moat near the Woshoni Junction also reflects a good state of conservation. It has suffered from being defaced from refuse dumps, which is being deposited by the neighboring houses.
Stars are singing over you. You're the land people dream to be. Our treasure.
Imoke Enya is my name, curator of Old Western Zoom Calabar. You are welcome to Bridge of No Return. Bridge of No Return is found in Ikorabasi, short line in Ikorabasi local government area of Akwa Ibom State. The bridge was built in 1795 to convey slaves to a waiting ship that would take them. The bridge is known as it's called a bridge of no return because it has to, when a slave step there, it cannot come back again. But the actual thing about the bridge that is a jetty, it's a floating jetty that was built in 1795 to convey slaves to the waiting ship that will take to a new world. Again, the place has three compartments and it's contained at one junction where slaves are being kept waiting around of the slave. But at times, the white men, because of the stubbornness of the slave, they have to keep up to 50 or more than slaves in this compartment waiting for the arrival of the ships. And it usually comes down at times, slaves there will find themselves dead, and when they find themselves dead, they are carried away and thrown into the water. And that will be the final destination of that slave. Today, the slave, the bridge is nicknamed Bridge of No Return because when a slave steps on that bridge, it doesn't turn back again, it doesn't look back again. That's your friendship, you are moved to a new world. But today, as I'm speaking here, you can step on the bridge, you can come back from the bridge, and nothing will happen to you. And it is being used as the tunnel. These are the tunnel I was talking about. You can see the tunnel. This is the tunnel. That is the tunnel that I told that can contain 50 capacity. They have capacity of containing 50 people, slaves inside, stubborn slaves. These are not compartment, and the last one is there. There are three of them. This is the floating jetty that you make. It's a pathway for the slave to walk and enter the ship. These are the charcoal for chaining the slaves from the leg or the neck and bind them through the chain to the ship for the waiting ship to take them to the new world. Then this is the iron that looks like an arrow. It's used in backing the marking. What we mean backing is branding them, giving them mark of identification, so you know that you are own slaves. station served as the weighing house attached to the bridge of no return, where the slaves are being weighed to know their value that were exchanged for umbrella, whiskey, mirror, in order for them to promote the trade by barter that was going on during the Atlantic slave trade. The hook-like object you are seeing up there was used for weighing the slaves. The slave will hung on there to find its weight and they will be brought down. From here, the slave will now move to the barracon. Barracon is the house where the slaves are being kept, waiting for the arrival of the slaves of the ship. So this is the barracon where the slaves are being kept. After being weighed, and the one that are not stubborn will be brought down here and be stored in this place, waiting for the arrival of the ship. While the stubborn ones will be taken and put in the dungeon. And then here is the actual barracon. You can see how it looks like. The state of the barracon needs an urgent attention because the poor condition of the place is not conducive for mankind. For us to preserve it very well, we need urgent attention in this place.
Welcome to Ogbunike Cave. Ogbunike Cave is located in Oyi local government of Anambra State in the southeastern part of Nigeria. It's a very interesting sight to see. It has mysterious rivers. The cave has 2 chambers and it's a very interesting sight to visit. These are the do's and don'ts of the cave. Only the cave manager and his assistants are authorized to operate at the cave, are duty bound to pay for the upkeep of the cave. Official hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
The geographical coordinates of Ogbunike Cave is along latitude 6 degrees 11 minutes east and longitude 6 degrees 54 minutes north. It's a community-owned property, is a natural heritage site, and functions as an educational, historical, traditional, and a tourism site. The cave is believed to have been discovered by a hunter called Ukwa from Umudioka family of Ifite during one of his hunting expedition about 14th century. The cave is situated in a valley with tropical rainforest behind the Oba Hills. The main cave consists of a massive structure with a big open chamber of about 5 meters high, 10 meters wide, and 30 meters long at the entrance, which varies at various points. Water drops from the top of the open chamber and drains off into the Nkise River. There are 10 tunnels at the main chamber leading to different directions. Within the tunnels are big chambers and other tunnels of varying lengths, some of which are interconnected. The cave is extremely dark and occupied by a large colony of bats, insects, and crickets. Other animals said to be present in the cave are porcupines, rodents, frogs, pythons, and crocodiles. There are streams and bodies of waters at various places. A stream flows out from one of the tunnels into a rapid flowing river called the Nkise River. At the meeting point of the river and the stream, one can feel the warm water from the cave and the cold water from the Nkise River. Beside this portion of the cave is a table of about 5 square meters used as a relaxation spot by the visitors to the cave. The significance and values of the cave. The history of Ogbunike town will not be complete without the mention of the cave. It provided a hiding and protective place for the Ogbunike people and people from the surrounding villages during the Nigerian Civil War from 1967 to 1970.
During the Biafran War, now here people can't hide.
cave was used as a symbol of justice in Ogbunike town. If anyone errs, the cave was used as arbiter. The water that drops from the roof of the cave and the stream from the cave is said to have healing power for all kinds of diseases and sickness. Various religious bodies use the cave for prayers and meditation. The forest contains a variety of medicinal plants.
Odogo, it's called Odogo tree.
Odogo
The
tree.
leaves are used for medicinal purposes.
It cures
It cures the rheumatism.
The site has great potentials for archaeological, geological, and natural history research. Students of various categories visit the site for both research and recreation.
Yes, you're enjoying the cave, right? Yes.
The site is endowed with beautiful scenery, such as the cave entrance, the sound of the rushing water, noise of birds, and the cool environment shaded by big trees suitable for camping and picnicking. It's a site to behold in terms of tourism, and the condition of the site is in good order because the community is involved in taking and maintaining the site. Ogbunike Cave is a proposed national monument and one of the monuments in the tentative list for declaration as a World Heritage Site.
Yes, we've just gone on a little tour of some heritage sites in Nigeria. Don't forget, we started this trend on Tuesday, the first day of the events. We had 3 videos. Yesterday also we did have, and today we have we had one from the Benin Moat in Edo State, Nigeria, which is touted as the longest man-made wall structure, longer than the wall of China, although it's in a derelict state. Then we had the Ogbunike Cave. So without much ado, we would go into today's events. We also want to welcome our audience on Facebook and on YouTube. You could just tweet this event, whatever blob comes into your that catches your fancy. You could just tweet it at Heritage NAIJA 2.0. Call your friends to join us live on Facebook and on YouTube. So we would have a very interesting conversation. So the comments, you could drop it on Facebook as on Facebook Live, and they will be treated accordingly. So we want to call on Mr. Fabia Wonusi, who is the General Secretary for E-Commerce Nigeria, to open the floor for the session.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Samson Faboye. I appreciate ICOMOS Nigeria Emerging Professional Working Group. I want to apologize for coming on my phone. I don't know what really happened. Something just went wrong with my system. That's why I could not really come via the system. We know that in the past 2 days, we have been on with this our program, the webinar, Heritage NAIJA 2.0. And we have gone through a series of discussion on this. As we know that the first day, we are able to look at Nigeria's heritage yesterday, today, and tomorrow, where Professor Okoko took us through the memory lane, trying to look at the trend of heritage conservation and management in Nigeria. And we really know that we had a very good discussion around that. The second day, which was yesterday, we had town planner Ayinde who is the president of Nigeria Institute of Town Planner, and who took time out to look into the status of heritage laws in urban planning in Nigeria cities. And he brought to fore certain areas or place of areas of challenge, if I may use that word, on how to be able, to cope with the pressure in the city, urban development, demand for land, housing, and influence, and how heritage could really be seen as part of the urban system. So, and he really came up with very interesting summation, which I think at the end of this program, the webinar, we'll be able to come up with key action points that will really help in doing the help the practitioners, those heritage managers and others, on how to move ahead in managing our cultural heritage within the urban space. Today, definitely we'll be going into an aspect that is so interesting, which has to do with the issue of changing climate and how it affects heritage. And sure, we have a set of panelists who are really going to do justice to this, and which will be looking at the climate change, the cultural heritage, and the community. If I may borrow the words of the organizer, that they emphasize that they really want to focus on the slow and sudden onset climate risk, which that are affecting various cultural heritage in Nigeria. Well, there is no doubt that we don't have, what do I call it? We have literatures on climate change and it affects heritage. And no, but we have not really have good actions, if I may use that word, or attempts to really see how this heritage and the community will be able to adapt to the trend of climate change, especially the stressors that will likely tell or impact on the cultural heritage that we have. So interestingly, just permit me to just say this, interestingly, ICOMOS Nigeria, or in conjunction with some foreign and local partners, just concluded a workshop on CVI, Climate Vulnerability Index, on cultural, cultural landscape, where I was fortunate to be there, and I think it's a good start for ICOMOS Nigeria, and it's a good start for us as a nation, because in Africa, Nigeria and Tanzania were choosing for this really pilot project. So not to bore us with this, we have a set of panelists that are really going to look into what we have for today, which has to do with the changing climate as it relates to Nigeria cultural heritage and the community. So permit me to briefly introduce those that will sit around to discuss this today. I would like to first introduce Ms. Sheung Ajaguna of the Legacy Restoration Trust. And also we have Mr. Sham Anthony, who is the site manager of Sukru Cultural Landscape. It's a World Heritage Site in Nigeria. Also we have Ms. Mboga Simon Grace, who is a scientific officer with the Strategic Space Application Department of the National Space Research and Development Agency. And also we have Professor Ibukunle Adelekan, from the Department of Geography, University of Ibadan. I believe at the end of the discussion today, we'll be able to really come up with other key points that are very helpful in driving the issue of climate change and cultural heritage management in Nigeria. Thank you. I welcome every one of us as we go into this discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Friday Awunusi, General Secretary, E-Commerce Nigeria, for your very inspiring words and welcoming words. Without much ado, he had already reeled out the panelists, and I would just extend apologies on behalf of Shinwa Jaguno. She's one of the panelists. She's unavoidably absent. She had sent an excuse. So we have our other panelists. We have Mrs. Grace Mbayoga. This is a brief bio about her. She's a representative for the West African region on the board of AYAB DRR. She is a spatial scientist with a broad interest in disaster risk reduction, natural resource management, climate change, vulnerabilities, and adaptation strategies. She's based in Abuja, Nigeria, and currently a principal scientific officer in the Strategic Space Applications Department of the National Space Research and Development Agency, NASRADA, under the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology of Nigeria. Over the past 8 years, she has been actively involved in carrying out space application projects in the thematic areas of natural resources, hazards, and the environment. Her schedule of responsibilities is demonstrated in utilizing space-based data in providing reliable and efficient planning tools to significantly improve quality, efficiency, and the depth of decision-making in the allocation of resources, environmental management, land use planning, and climate-smart agricultural practices. Additionally, her department is the hub of the Regional Support Unit of the United Nations Platform for Space-Based Information for Disaster and Emergency Response in Nigeria, and also responsible for supporting the West and Central African countries in space-based solutions to disaster management. Mbaoga Grace volunteered to use her expertise as a member of the board to meaningfully engage young people in strengthening disaster risk coordination in the ECOWAS region, as well as aligning developed national and regional programs of the board to the Sendai framework. She can be reached by email. Yeah, our contacts are there. And we have Professor Ibidun Adelekon, who has been engaged in teaching and research at the Department of Geography, University of Ibadan since 1992. She attained the rank of full professor of geography in 2016. Her areas of research includes climate and society, human dimensions of global environmental change, including vulnerability resilience of human and biophysical systems to climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction in coastal settlements and cities. She worked as program officer, gender and research in the flagship countrywide Canadian International Development Agency funded research program, Building Nigeria's Response to Climate Change, which engaged vulnerable populations to build informed responses to climate change impacts experienced in different socio-ecological systems of Nigeria. Her current professional and advisory roles includes coordinating lead author of the 9th chapter of the IPCC 6th assessment of the World Group Report, Impacts, Adaptation, and Vulnerability. She's also a member expert working group on climate change and sustainable energy of the EU-AU high-level policy dialogue, and a member of the expert review group, Race to Resilience, R2R campaign of the United Nations framework on climate change. Professor Ibidun Adelekon is a member of the Association of the Nigerian Geographers, the International Association of Urban Climate, and a corresponding author of the IGU Commission on Climatology. Such a rich portfolio, we hope for insightful cerebral discourse from the doyens of climate change. So over to Olufemi Adetunji to take events from here. Thank you. We can't hear you. Any problem?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Is everything okay now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Permit me to share my screen. Now, today I'll be making a short presentation before we go into the roundtable discussion today with our guest discussants. I'll be talking on heritage in changing climate, Nigeria experience. And we'll be discussing on the aim of this conversation is not only to tell us what to do in addressing impact of climate change as it affects cultural heritage and Nigerian community, but to make us aware and motivate us and mobilize us to take the necessary steps to address the challenges as it affects Nigeria. Also, at different times, we'll be having short polls. It's just one question poll. It's just mainly for us to engage with the attendees and expand the depth of this conversation. The first poll, I will release the first poll now. And please, in 1 minute or 30 seconds, let's attend to it based on our understanding. We have 1 minute to attend to our poll. It will pop up on our screens. Can we all see the polls on our screens? We have 30 seconds to go for the poll to end. Any more response coming in? Any more response coming in? We have few people that have not responded. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we share the results to us for us to know the gravity of what the challenge the cultural heritage in Nigeria is facing. Now I move ahead. According to the natural disaster data gathered between 1900 and 2020, it's been understood that drought, extreme weather events have not only affected those places that are significant to us, but has affected our well-being and livelihood as Nigerians. And we'll be unpacking these as we go on in this presentation. But undoubtedly, climate has changed and is still changing significantly. If we look at the data, the images on the screen, these are the projection. We could see that the projection between 2020 and 2039, we could see the changes that have been projected that will happen. And we could see that if we compare it between 2080 to 2099, we'll see the how large that changes could be. And Nigeria is currently dealing with a wide range of environmental challenges, which are exacerbated by changes in climate parameters and has negatively affected all sectors, particularly agriculture, culture and arts, and heritage, water resources, infrastructure, just to mention a few. The challenges facing the country are also deforestation and devegetation, which we could see this especially in the northern region. This has caused that biodiversity loss and land degradation, flooding, erosion, drought, desertification, which are degrading the environment, especially in the, as I said earlier, in the northern region of the country. This has resulted into conflict. We will observe a lot of conflict going on between the herders, because in the northern region where the cattle are before, the place is getting is droughted and is turning to be more desert. There's no more green pasture to feed the cattle. They have to move to the south. And by the time they move to the south, they will feed on farms, they will feed on plants that farmers have planted. And this leads to a lot of conflict that we've all been heard about in the news. Going further, now to discuss what are the key impacts of the changes in climate. I know that in the time we get to the roundtable discussion, we'll talk more about it. It has been observed that rainfall is changing, and with increase in temperature, this has resulted into increases in flood and drought, which has affected food security, water availability, increased incidence of extreme rainfall, this is much more observed in the southern part of the country, has resulted into soil erosion and waterlogging of crops. Lot of cultural heritage are being destroyed. Lot of access to this cultural heritage are being eroded, and this has affected the tourism sector. This has affected the culture and art and heritage sector within the country. And the changes in climate are affecting not only the culture and art and heritage sector alone, affected the education system, affected the urban development of many cities in the country, as well as the infrastructural sector. Going forward, cultural heritage includes tangible and intangible, movable and immovable aspects of the society and culture, which are very valuable to our well-being, very valuable to our identity. We have lots of these buildings, lots of these monuments, lot of these we saw some today, archaeological sites, a group of buildings. We have the National Theatre Complex in Lagos. We have the Kano City Wall. We have lots of them all around the country. This monument, this heritage site, they are facing a lot of risk, due to a lot of impact from the changing in climate. A scenario is more archaeological sites, including historical buildings. We continue to, this has been agreed on by scholars focusing in this aspect. More archaeological sites, historical buildings will continue to slowly deteriorate till a developer will see a reason to grab the land for real estate. Yesterday we heard about the Ilojoba experience, the guest discussants for yesterday said that the building it was in state of total disrepute. This was due to slow degradation of that building, and the owner of the building was served notice to do something about the building, but they couldn't do until a land grabber saw that building, saw the land, that this land is not valuable again, and we have to demolish the building. And many of these buildings are being replaced with malls, apartment buildings, and all the rest. Going forward, we'll see that there's the likelihood and well-being of Nigeria is at risk. Based on, while I was preparing for this presentation, based on the data that has been gathered, we'll see that between 3 to 15% of Nigeria GDP could be lost by 2030 due to changes in climate. This shows that something urgent, some real intervention has to be done, has to be implemented to stem the tide of the impact of climate change around Nigeria. Going forward, before we take another poll, I want to discuss addressing climate change and its impact. It's not a one-person thing. It's not what the national government alone can do. It's not what one organization can do. It requires everyone to work hand in hand, to collaborate together to ensure that this challenge is minimized. The impact of climate change is minimized. However, there has been progresses, especially in agriculture and energy sector. Based on what has been done by the government, we've seen a lot of minimal intervention, especially in agriculture and energy sector. But this lot of other sectors they've not been involved in addressing this issue. We see, for instance, only 3 states in Nigeria has climate policy. Lagos State has, Nasarawa State has, and Osun State has. Even there's no local government in Nigeria that could say they have this climate policy to guide their operation within their jurisdiction. And as well, I could say nearly no private organization is implementing climate responsive approach in their operation. Even we will say this, none of the, even the bigger companies, the big corporate bodies that are in Nigeria, that operate in Nigeria, that operate in the extractive sector in Nigeria, that operate in education sector in Nigeria, many of them don't have a climate responsive approach. They are not implementing any of this approach in their operation. Even at the federal level, I said there are some action, but we'll see that a lot of policy. We'll talk more about this in the next slide. As I said earlier, we've seen that at the federal level, we've seen that a lot of policies have been implemented. We have the updated national determined contribution, we have the third national communication, and all the rest. We have the adaptation strategy and all the rest. But as I said earlier, many of these interventions are policy at the policy level, and any policies that are not backed up with real projects, real intervention within the community cannot achieve its goal. And for instance, federal government transformed special climate change unit embedded in Ministry of Environment into a department that is at the policy level, at the governance level. But if we go ahead, there are some gaps that has been observed between the policy and the intervention that we could see, the real intervention that we could see within the communities. Some of these gaps are inadequate support and capacities of relevant organizations such as National Commission for Museum and Monument. I'm very happy when the ECMO secretary talked about the CVI project. That is very good, but Sukkot is not just the only heritage site in Nigeria. We know that Sukkot is one of the World Heritage Sites, but we have other national heritage sites. We have the state heritage sites, And this, what was done for Suko, need to be duplicated, and not only duplicated alone with in other heritage sites. The data, the knowledge gathered in those processes, in those interventions, need to feed into the management policy, need to feed into how these buildings are concerned, how these heritage sites are concerned. Also, we see lack of capacity. We see the difference between the data that has been gathered and the intervention within the community. We have NAIJA in Nigeria that are gathering a lot of climate data, but there is a gap between how this data is being communicated to people within the community, to the frontline workers that will ensure that climate impact are being addressed across Nigeria. Moving on, I want to say that yes, as climate is changing, a lot of things are being done, but what has been done so far is very minimal, and that's one of the reasons why this presentation, this webinar is organized today. As I said, it's not to tell us what to do, but for us to be motivated and mobilized to ensure that we look at how what we do, how we operate in our different offices, how we operate, what we do within our community, how it's contributing to climate change and its impact within our community. Various scholars, both Nigerian-based scholars and international scholars, they've agreed that Nigerians can't address climate change and its impact by continuing in this trend. That is agreed upon across the board. However, stakeholders need to review with evidences. We have policies that I've reviewed a lot of climate policies in Nigeria, that you will see that this policy has no evidential backing, or very minimal, very negligible evidential backing. That's why we need to move from desktop policy making to evidence-based policy making. And for instance, if I work with Osun State government and I'm in charge of issuing and approving contracts, my office needs to ensure that the work schedule and the operation of the contractor does not contribute in real time, does not contribute to climate change. That is one of the key issues. That's one of the approaches that could be taken across the government levels in Nigeria. Also, the government has lots of policies which has not been domesticated in many states in Nigeria. We have to internalize these policies. We have to put procedures in place. We have to put structures in place to ensure that those policies are implemented across the board, across the building construction sector, across the culture and art and heritage sector, across the education sector. We have to impute climate content, climate-related content into our curriculum at our institutions. That's just these are the few of the suggestions I have of what can be done to stem the impact of climate change across our communities. Research and innovation within organizations managing heritage in Nigeria. We have to have a dedicated, a well-supported department that is into research and innovation, real research and innovation. Because climate is evolving. That means we have to evolve as it continues to evolve as we move on. And I know that we'll still talk more about this as we move on in the roundtable discussion. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. I hand over to you, Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, Olufemi, for your presentation, calling our attention to issues on climate change as it does affect heritage. So I think there are a lot of nuggets to ponder upon. I don't know, at what point are we going to have our other panelists presenting? Grace Mbaoga and Professor Ibidun Adeleke.
Yeah, they can come on board now.
All So, okay, yes, Grace is there. So, welcome, Grace. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. Yes, good to have you. You have the floor, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. the moderator and the organizer. It's really a rare privilege to be here, and the concerns or facts raised on climate change and heritage centers. During the Olufemi's presentation, I was able to make some understanding about some facts already presented, and then the trend of climate change in Nigeria, and then the disaster management in Nigeria, and possible prospects in the country. As you know, I'm wearing two caps here, but permit me to speak on the African Youth Advisory Board on DRR, where I'll be having a more holistic overview of disaster management in Nigeria and the West Africa. Now, Nigeria is a disaster-prone country with a lot of natural and human-induced disasters. And then we have a lot of policies, climate policies, as rightly stated by Olufemi. The policies are there, but when it comes to implementation, there is concern in the sense that we have a lot of actors, private, governments, even CEOs, right, in the system. But the synergy is so weak, it's so poor that the governance, it's non-existent. And then you find a repetition of initiative, and then the power is not given to the people to actually domesticate this initiative in their own communities. I'll give you an example. We always want to look at climate or disaster management using the bottom to top approach, right? But when you go to the community, like the local government, just like you said, there are no climate policies. These people don't even know what climate change is all about. They are just living, and they find it very difficult. Then you see NGOs coming into these communities, or CSOs, civil societies, coming into these communities to actually educate them. But the linkage between the government policies, the government officials, it's very, very weak. And so therefore, in this kind of situation, as an advocate for the youth, will come in this place to like, okay, roll out initiative, aligning it with what's happening with private actors together with the communities, and try to step up this initiative. I'll give you, for example, like in Abuja, we have communities that are vulnerable to flood because year in, year out, climate is changing, and we tend to feel this impact of disasters happening around us. But the policies are there. When it comes to implementing them, nobody's saying anything about them. So these communities are already prone to disasters, and year in, year out, they are affected. If you look at the statistics from 2012, where we have the flooding events in Nigeria, subsequently it has been occurring. But if you ask what has actually been done, initiatives or programs have actually been carried out. Like I'm aware that the UNDP, collaborating with ECOWAS, with NEMA, and other parastatals, are trying to look at how we build resilience from all of some of these hazards or disasters happening. But it's really, really a cumbersome. And then disaster risk has to be multi-sectoral. has to involve a whole lot of people coming together to work together. If we don't have that synergy, I'm afraid we keep going the same cycle on and on and on. So I feel, or my own take home here is that we need to work together, we need to roll out initiatives, we need to push those in the public sector to actually do what is right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Grace Baoga, for your insightful comments. At this point, I would want to invite Professor Idun Adelekun to have our opinion on the theme.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank Femi Adetunji for his presentation, where he showed us the impacts of climate change in Nigeria in different sectors, different environments. We can see from the presentation that, you know, climate change is a reality and it affects different people, different activities, you know, and in relation to our topic of interest today, culture and heritage, you know. When we are looking at the different hazards as it is with regard to Nigeria, you know, we're talking about flooding, we are looking at drought, we're looking at extreme weather events, including strong winds. And then we have also heat waves, you know, extreme temperatures. And none of the sectors, productive sectors, economic sectors, are excused or are left out of the impact of changing climate and the extreme weather events. When we talk about humans, you know, in terms of our productive activities, we see that when these hazards occur, we are affected. Then in terms of properties, assets, you know, they are also at the brunt, at the receiving end. We have huge losses recorded. We have damage to infrastructure and to property. And that's where we also have our buildings, our heritage sites. And also when we talk about livelihood activities, especially for people that are in rural environments, you see, because most of their activities are nature-based, tied to the land and tied to their culture. So when, for example, you have flood events, for those that live in the coastal areas, for example, we're having, as a result of climate change, you're having increased frequency of storm surges as a result of increase in sea level rise, increase in frequency and severity of storm surges. Some of their assets, for those that are along the coast, where, for example, many are into artisanal fishing, for example, okay, their boats are destroyed, their fishing gears destroyed, and because since the historical past, they have been involved in fishing, for example, then they are in the adverse effect is much on them. You find some communities where they don't have other livelihood activities except fishing. The men go fishing, the women smoke fish, and then that is where the household economy, you know, lies. The men go fishing, the women smoke fish and take the fish to the market, sell the fish, and then bring the proceeds home. And that is how their children are fed, the whole household is fed. They have money to do every other thing they need to do. But when you have the increased storm surges that destroy their boats, or they're not able to go to sea, they destroy their fishing nets and so on, their smoking, and for those that Many of them depend on firewood to smoke fish. As a result of flooding of their communities, the firewood also becomes damp. So it takes much effort and time even to smoke fish. And then it affects their health too. Then they are at a loss, grave loss, to their sustainability. And you can also look at the Niger Delta region also, you see, because of changing climate, a lot of the environment there is affected. So, and then if you look at even other coastal areas where you have tourist activities, people go to the beaches, you have, all kinds of activities, and then you have the storm surges, and then all those tourist structures, are destroyed. People also at severe loss. So these are just some of the issues. Then if you talk about just even agriculturists, people, that engage in farming, for example, in recent times destroyed the farms that is affected. For some people who even engage in urban agriculture, even within cities also, you have urban agricultural activities being affected. Poultry farms are affected. Fish ponds, those that engage in aquaculture within the urban environment, that they are also affected. You have even rising groundwater levels, affect people. So we cannot extricate ourselves, whether you are in the rural environment, rural areas, or you are in urban communities, whether you are engaged in activities that are tied to nature, or you are doing some other things. Because when sometimes you have some of these hazards, you have the ripple effect. Transportation also being affected when you have the roads flooded. Sometimes roads are damaged, people cannot move. Even in the north, where you have some activities like the Agugu Fishing Festival. Okay. Sometimes when you have boat and the water level reduces, the fishing festival cannot take place. So these are just issues that we can say that is cut across board that we need to take into consideration, and our government and then people also need to be well informed. They must have knowledge of these things, know that the changing climate has severe impacts across sectors, which we need to address, not just, as has been said before, just formulating policies or just ratifying international treaties or international policies, but bringing it back home. We should look at our local context. When you look at our local context, you will be able to, and then you have community voices, the voices of the people who are really affected. They know how they are affected, and with this we can move forward, because when you'll be able to take informed decision making or planning. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Professor Adelekun, for your insights into this issue of climate change. We would have a series of questions rolling in, and I want to appeal to our attendees both on Facebook, YouTube, and here present on Zoom to kindly drop in their questions, their contributions in the chat box, and of course they'll be read out and treated accordingly. But before we go into the series of questions, we have a poll which would appear on our screens now. So we have to select the 3 top impacts of climate change on cultural heritage in Nigeria. Yes, so just a 1-minute poll. So let's click. We have, okay. 30 seconds more. All right, the poll has ended. And from our polls, we see that flooding takes the highest percentage. It's number one. Then coming distance next. Okay, we have ties on flooding takes of 57% of our answer choice. Then we have communal violence, loss of biodiversity, wildfires, and coastal erosion. But I think by my bias as a Nigerian, I think after flooding, then we'll go with communal violence, coastal erosion, then loss of biodiversity. Thank you for the poll. So we have the questions to rolling in. Let's also drop our questions. So our panelists, don't go away. We have questions for you. 61 years ago, Nigeria emerged as an independent country and began a journey in development across all sectors. Can you share your thoughts about how Nigeria addressed the challenge of climate change and disaster risk since independence? Yes, to our panelists, please.
Okay, you didn't indicate who is going to talk, but I will say that since independence in the 60s, okay, since the 60s, climate change, the challenge of climate change, you know, that we are experiencing now, we were not experiencing it like that then. And also, when you are talking about climate change, we want to look at it in our local context, in our environment. Okay, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, in Nigeria, we were not, you know, experiencing the impact of climate change as we are now experiencing for many reasons. You know, as we moved into the 90s, globally and even locally, came more profound. You know, industrial activities, human activities that gave rise to emission of greenhouse gases, you know, and then greater emissions with the implications. In the past, Nigeria, in the 60s, Nigeria was not as populated in terms of our population, in terms of urbanization, in terms of industrialization as we have now. So our environment was, you know, not impacted as we are being impacted now. Now, because of increasing population and urbanization and all the activities that go with it, you know, with deforestation, you know, and with increased deforestation, that means vegetation that was supposed to absorb carbon dioxide had reduced. And then the effect from the atmosphere is what we're experiencing in Nigeria now, for example, is not only as a result of what is being done here, even though we have non-climate stressors, some of the effects as a result of some of our activities. Flood susceptible to have increased rainfall, more built up areas, causing reduction in natural surfaces, so that when the heavy rainfall lot of heavy, which are not able areas. We have less vegetation, increased deforestation, more built up areas, and vegetation. When it rains, that reduces, you have different, the scenario has changed. Now,
Okay.
in the past, we had the Natural Conservation Act of 1989. The Natural Conservation Act of 1989 mainly, okay, that was there to reduce deforestation, but this act, starting from, if I use that as the baseline for many other policies that have come into play, they had not, many of our policies are not being enforced. You have them on paper, you have them and they are sound, okay? Some of them as a result of international laws that have been domesticated in Nigeria, but then the political will, okay, to enforce these policies or to implement, to see that they are working, is not there, it's not been affected. It's not effective.
Prof,
yes.
Prof, thank you. So I think this leads to the next question. Nigeria ratified the Paris Agreement on 16th May 2017, which illustrates efforts to take actions addressing climate change and its impacts. Since its ratification, what are your thoughts about the actions, policy planning, interventions, and implementation that has been taken by Nigeria across sectors?
Okay, if we are coming down to the Paris, one of the ways in which Nigeria is seeks to implement the Paris Agreement is to reduce carbon emissions, for example, okay? But we have not really done much, because if you just look at just the very evident area in terms of gas flaring, okay? In terms of gas flaring, one of the show that is to reduce carbon emissions. Come up with the government. They came up with a date. That by
we lost Professor Ibidun. It also pleases us to note that Nigeria is Africa's largest gas producer, and we are the biggest flarer of gas. Over 40% of Nigeria's natural gas is flared. And unfortunately, we are not even able to meet up with local demand. The cost of gas is escalating. So we hope that with the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill, the PIB recently, I will begin to have interventions. So thank you, Professor Ibidun. I want to take another question. Nigeria has been the largest economy in Africa since 2012. A huge population strength, growing at the average of 2.5 annually. In 1960, we had a population, at independence, we had a population of 40 million. And today our population is over 200 million. What are your thoughts about how climate change can affect Nigeria's economy, inclusive of culture-related sectors such as tourism, heritage, creative industries, and the likes? Grace in Baoga, you have the floor, please.
Okay, thank you. It's quite impressive that Nigeria has grown from a population of 40 million to over or close to 200 million, and population is strength. And 70%, luckily 70% or 60% of this population are youths, right? Between the age of 20, 19 to 35, as the African Union will put it. Now, Nigeria stands a chance to create opportunities and to boost the economy. Recently, the African Development Bank rolled out an initiative that has to do with empowering or creating an entrepreneurial environment for young persons who could come up with resilient initiative that can help sustain the economy. We can tap into that. 2 months ago, I attended a webinar where the African Union Scientific Department in Abuja organized, and we were looking at how we can actually empower people using bioenergy. And it will impress you to note that there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there who are actually going into a lot of bioenergy projects, which are actually beneficiary, and then they can empower the youth and as well as boost the economy. I think the major challenge we have here is the skills and then the finance, right? But if we can actually partner with some of these organizations, it will go a long way in trying to help the economy. Now, relating this to heritage centers, most of these heritage centers are actually not, the infrastructures are getting bad, let me put it that way. But I remember UNESCO actually puts together an activity that has to do with boosting World Heritage Centers. So partnering with multinational organizations like this can go a long way actually in trying to revive some of these heritage centers. Now, I would also like to say one or two things about disaster risks. We all know, because a lot of our CSO have been carrying out advocacies on climate change, but talking about the impacts, because for the past 2 decades, you can see that the impact of climate change is actually increasing in Nigeria. In fact, this year we experienced late onset of the rainfall, and by this time where we are supposed to, the rainfalls are supposed to diminish, they are actually falling continuously. For example, in Abuja, we are experiencing rainfall every day, and we're having incidents of flooding occurring, and then infrastructures or people who build in disaster-prone areas are being affected. So my take home is like, we should try as much as possible to partner with organizations or push or policies that will actually benefit the youth in question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Barga. This is to welcome Mr. Sham Anthony to the floor of panelists, and you have a rapid fire of questions for you, which must be answered in 5 minutes as we prepare to round off this session. So to Mr. Sham Anthony, we have this for you. 2 World Heritage Sites are in Nigeria, with lots of national and state listed heritage sites. As a key professional in the heritage market management industry, what are your thoughts about how impacts of climate change on these heritage sites have been addressed? And that leads us to the CVI Africa project that is ongoing, which brings about knowledge exchange and capacity development for heritage stakeholders to understand the connection between cultural heritage and climate change. What are your thoughts on how skills gained on this project can be leveraged to address climate change impacts on other heritage sites in Nigeria? You will be ably supported by Mr. Friday Awunusi, but we give you the preference, Mr. Sham, to answer these questions in 2 minutes. Then we have a response from Mr. Friday. Thank you. Please, we can barely hear you. Could you turn off your video if that would improve the sound, your sound quality, please, Mr. Sham? You are permitted to turn off your video if it will improve your sound quality. Mr. Sham?
Yes.
All right, yeah, you can speak, please. 2 minutes.
Are you getting me now?
Yes, very clear and audible.
I said I need to apologize for joining this program late and social engagement in Cameroon on the boundary issues. Yes, now the program of Climate Vulnerability Index is a very good program that has come at the right time. As you know, that Sukkur cultural landscape is located in the Sahel Savannah in northeastern Nigeria. You see that the climate stressors, the major one are the excessive heat, drought, and windstorm, especially those coming from the northeast trade wind. Very, very, very significant impact on the cultural landscape. Over the years, you look at the gradual desiccation of the Sahara, it has affected the socio-economic, it has in fact multiply effect on the cultural landscape. Excessive heat results into drought, a lot of drought, and it brings about a low level of rainfall. Rainfall now continues to decrease gradually, which also affect the socio-economic activities in the landscape. So especially farming, subsistence farming, animal husbandry is because the land has been degraded because of low level of rainfall. So these are some of those issues that we have looked at it in the project, and it's very, very, very enlightening in managing such a property, which are very fragile. Also, when we look at the landscape, as the impact on it from the environment, it affects each and every attribute that convey value. So the impact has been very significant in some areas, but in other parts, it's less significant. And if you look at also the significant property value, the impact has also been impacted gradually year in, year out. And it is also the same stressors that affect the landscape. So in all, I will now say it's a very big program that we have brought in, and we will continue to be working on those that will be looking at each of the key component parts which convey value, and we can now be looking at how we sustain the authenticity and integrity of the entire landscape. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sham. That's quite concise, even though we struggle to hear you at some point. Mr. Friday, would you want to share a few words, particularly about the CVI project at Sukkur? Mr. Friday?
I think he has dropped off.
Okay, so the last question, so we just take the last question. Okay, let me go into the chat box and see what we have there, what we have from our attendees. Please, you could drop your questions, please. We have one saying that, just for clarity, what would you say is the single most significant impact on indication of climate change on cultural and natural heritage assets in Nigeria? I think we took a poll. Did our poll answer that? Or do our panelists agree with our poll that says flooding? Grace, Okay, but I don't want to agree with flooding. I want to share my bias here. I don't want to agree with flooding, in as much as I agree that yeah, because we have to say some things that as it is, we have a lot of communal crisis in Nigeria, and a lot of things are actually being destroyed. What we have at Marshall flooding, like each time I travel along to Abuja and around Lokoja, you see people building on the floodplains. So what we actually have is failure in planning policies. Our planning policies are derelict. We do not implement them. We do not do strict development control. Because if our country, take a look at Netherlands, for over 70 years or close to 100 years, when the dikes are built, the whole country is below the floodplain, is below the sea level. And I think it's until recently, just this year is the first time I heard that Denmark was experiencing flood. So look at Lagos. I live in Lagos, born in Lagos. And when the rains come, you see people just throwing their garbage into the gutters. The gutters then become blocked. Then we have flooding. So most of our problems in Nigeria are actually man-made. But I still want us to take the issue, because communal crisis is the one pinching us on the feet now. And if we want to take it above flooding, okay, since it's democracy, let me just
say one or two things here before you wrap it up. I will agree with you because I respect your opinion, but you agree with me that actually the communal crisis actually came in 8 or 9 years ago, right? So, but then we have the issue of flooding, which has been there for quite a long time. Remember the 2012 flooding affecting a lot of heritage centers? And then we have the maintenance culture, just like you said, we have some attitudinal problems of we trying to regulate things. You're right when you say people build on environmental plane. Yeah, but in FCT where you have the SCDA, you agree with me that some of these rules are not followed strictly, right? So no matter how you create rules, you still have people to implement the policy, and you still have some people who break these rules and still get along to do what they want to do. But I think the issue of flooding has been reoccurring for the past 2 decades now, which I think it's the major problem. But communal crisis actually is just something we're experiencing, and it's getting on a very high side quite recently. So this is my take about this issue.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We want the president of Nigeria would want to have the last word. We'll give him the last word before we close for today. Mr. Liu, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Samson. Once again, let me again congratulate and thank you people for your dynamism, your passion, and your ability to source this level of highly informed intellectuals and citizens to discuss this topical issue. On the whole, I just want to chip in just 1 or 2 comments concerning this issue of the climate change and its impact on heritage. Now, just as you asked about the pole, you see, the truth of the matter is that sometimes we take in the issue of the climate change because it's the tropical global issue. We relate it directly to our environment, based on our own high-level scientific understanding of climate change impacts. But how do our people actually understand climate change? Because unless there is a correlation between the understanding of the local communities, our people, to the climate change phenomenon, then it will be very difficult for us to actually involve them in addressing those climate impacts. Quickly, because you can see even at the poll that we have just made now, because of the experience that you have on the coastal region there, the issue of flooding takes the highest number. But for us here in the northern part, frankly, if you will ask people what is their own understanding of the impact of climate change, they will tell you it's drought. In fact, it's lessening lack of rain and the impact of the lack of rain on their agricultural activities, social and economic activities. So there are different understanding about the climate change impact. And also, as you said, it's a very important factor. The issue of that now we are experiencing more flood doesn't necessarily mean that there is increase in rainfall per se, but then there may be the way population increase and also the management of the water systems and all these people blocking the waterways and all this. So they are very important in the issue of flooding, not necessarily the increase in the amount of rain. So generally you could see the issue of climate change has to be also analyzed in relation to the population growth. You see the population growth here, especially here that I've experienced in the northern part of the country, even in rural areas, where you find initially you find very few hundreds of people. Now you will go and see overpopulated, densely populated people in a small rural settlement that are depending on the scarce natural resources there, without making any practical, attempt to improve the resource base of these things and all this. So in the whole day, I'm just saying that I really appreciate this program, because it's one excellent way of sensitizing us generally and the community about the changes in nature. Because people here, generally people will tell you, yes, we are experiencing changes, but it's just natural change in nature, and that everything that has to change. How do we now convince them that these new changes, there are definite things that you do that that aggravate the situation, and these are the basic things that we should do to be able to ameliorate some of these negative effects. So thank you very much once again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Aliu Abdul, President of Farmers Nigeria, for your capping words. We would have the call to action now, but before we do that, we'll take a poll, and that will then lead. I will hand over to Dr. Ijoma Onyejekwe to handle the fallout from the poll and wrap up the session. The call to action. Yeah, we just have 1 minute for the poll.
How about you now?
Okay, we can end the poll. So over to Dr. Mrs. Ijoma.
Thank you very much, Samson. I want to also say thank you to all our attendees and panelists, and Ms. Grace Mboga, Professor Ibudun Adelekon, and Shan Anthony. Olufemi also Your lectures today were very insightful. So many things were raised today, and there needs to be a change. There needs to be a change in Nigeria if our heritage assets are to be protected, if the life of the people in Nigeria and their livelihood have to be protected. There needs to be a change. In fact, I carried out a study in Cross River National Park to buttress what Grace and Professor Adelekun talked about. The tropical moist forest, which is also one of the heritage sites, the urban division that is in tentative list to be declared as a World Heritage Site, has been a problem because when the site was designated a Cross River National Park, the people were not involved. In fact, the problems that they were envisaging even increased because the mechanisms, the indigenous knowledge systems of the people were not integrated in the protection of the park itself. At night, they go to cut down the trees, they go to hunt these endangered species of animals, the drill monkeys and the Sekupan monkeys. So we have a very big problem. Like Grace said, that we have policies in Nigeria that had to do with climate change, but surprisingly, they are not being implemented. And one of these reasons is the top-down approach. We need a down-up approach. We need the people, the communities, to be part of the solutions in mitigating the problems. This is not what we see. So from what we have discussed today, I highlighted some of the things we need to do, the way forward for things to change. First, we need more research on the impacts of climate change in Nigeria, and it should be disaggregated on the archaeological, historical, and living heritage of the people of Nigeria. And also this research, we have empirical research, but we also need participatory research. We need research that has to do with maybe rapid rural appraisal of the people that live there to see the efforts, the indigenous knowledge systems they have employed to be able to mitigate the problems of climate change. We also need to know how this mitigation impact has been helpful, how it has helped the people, and how it can be helpful to other parts of Nigeria, Africa, and even the world at large. Also, we need to implement efficient and sustainable adaptation planning policies in our plans, because of those of us that were part of the programs yesterday, we talked about heritage laws and practice. There are so many things in which we need to know about and planning and heritage to be able to preserve the livelihoods and the life of people, indigenous settlements and communities. Also, again, I was also looking at the cultural heritage impact assessment. There needs to be a CVI, cultural and climate variability index. The impact on these heritage resources, it should be contained in the cultural heritage impact assessment if it will be integrated in the site analysis plan and report. Also, we are also looking at skill development in climate impact, skills that can help to reduce the problems of climate change in Nigeria. We need these skills to be added in the curriculum of Nigerian schools. In a time like this, where geography is not a subject that is offered in most schools, we need to bring it out as a course, because it's very important, because our livelihood is in danger, the Nigerian economy is in danger, our GDP is decreasing, so many problems we are facing right now because of the climate change. So if this can be addressed, at least I know that we can look up to a brighter future. If not, it will compromise our achievement of the sustainable goals and even the Paris Agreement on climate change. So I think with this, if we can take it up and our countries, our governments, the local governments can see how important these things are, integrate indigenous knowledge systems in mitigating the climate change, skill development in climate knowledge systems that can mitigate the problem. Awareness, create awareness also, sensitization of the public, because I heard Grace say that they have data on the problems. of climate change. The public needs to know this. We need, even it has to be animations, there should be seminars, workshops, so that people will know the effects, and if the situation should continue, what it will be in the next 10, 20, 30 years, if it should be allowed to continue. With this, we can create more people have more interest in the issue of climate change, especially in the protection of our heritage, because our heritage contains indigenous systems, knowledge systems that are sole drivers in our development in both science, in politics, socioeconomic, in every way that can make Nigeria to become, to attain the 2063 African agenda. So with this, I leave with every one of us, and I want to also thank the organizers and everyone that is present here. And may God bless you, and thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Onyejekwe, for your closing remarks. On behalf of the Emerging Professionals Working Group of E-Commerce Nigeria National Committee, I want to appreciate you all for taking time out to attend our event. We had a robust attendance from our international friends, from China, from Australia, from Portugal, from the Shared Youth Heritage International Scientific Committee, and more importantly, from E-Commerce Nigeria. We wouldn't have been able to organize this program without them giving us the mandate to do so. So we hope these discussions that we have here will not end on this forum, would go on in our daily duties or in our daily pursuits to pursue the issues or the thematic discussions that emanated from this event. We will keep pushing this agenda at a local corner and at the global level. So let's keep on the conversation going, and we welcome your messages, and hopefully subsequently we will come up with more events like this. Thank you for attending, and God bless you. Goodbye.